Hi, and welcome to Dyer Consequences on Unprecedented TV, and I'm Claire Dyer. Here is the place where silence ends and truth begins. Today, we are addressing a deeply serious and often hidden issue, which is child abuse. This topic is difficult but essential to confront. Child abuse takes many forms: physical, emotional, sexual, and neglect, and it affects children from all backgrounds. Every child deserves to grow up safe and loved and protected, but for too many, that right is stolen by abuse. An abuse that often happens behind closed doors and far too often is ignored by the very systems that are meant to protect them. The truth is hard but necessary. Our institutions, from social services to the courts, are not doing enough. And in many cases, they are failing survivors. And in some, they are complicit. Survivors are dismissed, abusers are shielded, and justice remains heartbreakingly out of reach. But survivors are rising, and they are speaking out and reclaiming their stories. They are demanding change, and they are exposing the cracks and refusing to be silenced. My guest today is one of those voices, a survivor of child abuse herself, who is now a powerful advocate campaigning for justice, not just for themselves, but for every child who's been hurt, ignored, or betrayed. This conversation will challenge you. It may make you feel uncomfortable, but it's the kind of truth we have to face, because protecting children isn't just a personal duty, it's a collective responsibility. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Chris Tuck.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on and giving me the platform to speak about
Well,
this topic that's often taboo.
yeah, well, thank you for being here and for obviously, being willing to share your story. I mean, to begin, tell me a little bit about what motivated you to sort of, start speaking out and campaigning for justice.
When I was 40, I launched my book, and that gave me the voice to speak up on behalf of other people. I just had this urge to tell my truth, to be able to be my authentic self. And that meant sharing everything that had gone before and the impact that I was living with that caused my breakdown at work. And then also using my voice and my experiences to have those conversations that are difficult so that we can help other people. Back when I launched my book 13 years ago, and even today, when we know it's still going on in many homes as
Yeah,
well as many organisations.
yeah, because obviously you are a victim yourself.
Yes.
I don't know if you feel comfortable about talking about anything that you went through that obviously puts you in a position to be able to understand more than most people what it actually feels like.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've got a very long story, so I'm going to make it quite short and succinct. So I grew up in three domestic violence households: my mum and my dad and my stepmum, my mum and my stepdad, and all three of those relationships were domestic violence.
Okay.
So we were witnessing things that we should never have witnessed.
Mm.
Whilst all of that was going on in those three different households, I and my siblings, we all suffered varying degrees of mental, emotional, physical abuse, some of us sexual abuse.
Wow.
And because we come from a poor home, we weren't fed, we were starved by one of those households. We then went to school and we were bullied at school because of what we looked like and because of what we smelt like, because we were neglected. And unfortunately, I had the birth name of Oliver. So you can imagine how that was used in the playground against us.
How old were you when this started?
My mum left her domestic violence relationship with my dad when I was 7.
Okay.
So from the age of 7 to 15 and a half, that was all marred by abuse in all different forms
And
collectively.
have you got siblings as well?
Yes, I've got 5 siblings.
So was it all of you?
Yeah, to varying degrees, yes.
No. And did not one of you ever attempt to speak out or say anything? You just kept it quiet.
No, we all spoke out.
So you did speak out.
I personally spoke out at school, to the police, and to social services when they were in our lives. So I spoke out.
And what happened?
So I was sexually assaulted by someone outside of the family home at the age of 9, and that went to a local police station. And back then, they didn't have any forensic sites like they do now, that if you were sexually assaulted or raped today, you would go to a sexual assault centre. We used to have the internal investigations happen at the police station. So back in 1979, I had an internal investigation of examination of myself at the age of 9 at the police station. And that was more triggering to me as a victim than the sexual assault that I had undergone.
Really?
It wasn't the police's fault per se. That was just the way that they investigated cases back then. Today, they don't do that. You go to a sexual assault referral centre.
So you said that obviously your abuse went on until you were 15, but this was actually reported to the police when you were 9.
Yes.
So I'm guessing nothing happened as a result of you reporting this.
Of that sexual assault that happened outside the family home, it was reported. I believe it was investigated, but I was age 9. It just all got swept under the carpet. Whether they thought that was the best for the child at the time, because you're young, you might forget about it. Well, I can tell you now, we don't forget about it.
You don't. I mean, even just emotional trauma, emotional abuse is bad enough, and it carries with you. And whether you are able to deal with it or not, it definitely shapes the person you become as an adult. And I would always say that there are always going to be triggers at some point in your
100%.
life, just from emotional abuse. So, you've mentioned emotional abuse, economic abuse, financial abuse, and obviously sexual abuse. And that's every part of your being, isn't it?
Yeah,
every
it is.
Part. So to be able to deal with that, and move throughout your entire life, it's always going to be there with you, obviously. So moving on. So did you or your siblings ever report or continue to speak out as you all got older?
Yeah, we spoke out again when my sister was 16 and I was 18. Again, we went to another local police station. We reported this particular abuse that my sister had undergone, and there was a big investigation into that. Social services were involved, and again, it was decided that there will be no further investigation. So an NFA was actioned at that point. And we then, in 2016, as part of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, there was this component part of the inquiry called the Truth Project. We went there and we shared what we'd gone through as children and young people, how we had been impacted, and what the institutional failings were, so that we can better protect children and young people today. So we shared with them exactly what had happened, how we were impacted, and what would have made a difference. And we spoke all of that to the inquiry. And we then, as a result of that, was able to get our case reopened. And we tried to bring a case against all of our caregivers, all 4 of them. And it was a 4-year investigation. And yet again, even though we went through the victim's right to review process right to the nth degree, it was no further actioned. There was some evidence that turned up from 1988 multi-agency meeting that had happened. And throughout this report that we've got, I've got it in black and white sitting in a file, it clearly shows that sexual abuse had happened. It clearly shows the circumstances, and it clearly shows that the MASH team, most of them, said that it happened, children were at risk, but no further action was the outcome of that 1988
This
report.
this is what I find so hard to kind of get my head around or even understand. Like, we know that this situation happens, but this has been obviously reported, and as you said, the MASH team, social services, and yet they did nothing. And yet we do know all too well of cases where, you know, social services are actually taking children out of good homes. It's almost like they're taking the wrong children. They're leaving children in, you know, environments of where there's obviously abuse, but taking children out of loving family homes. And we know it happens, but it's just, you just can't get your head around it. And so many people don't believe that this actually happens. So why do you think that they NFA'd this?
They said, so the CPS have always said, and we got it in writing again, that there was enough evidence, but it wasn't in the public interest. Now, there's only one way that I can take that, and that is that it would cost too much money to put this particular person through the court system. Right. And for the outcome that it would have given, which would have probably been a suspended sentence, because we all know that sexual assaults, depending on the severity of the sexual assault, rape, whatever it was, you get a predetermined sentence. So I think that they've never said this, but my understanding is if there is enough evidence, but it's not in the public interest, i.e. there wouldn't have been a sentence at the end of it that would, what's the word, counterbalance the cost of it.
I can't get past the whole not in the public interest.
I know.
In your interest.
I know.
How it makes you so angry, and yet you'll have somebody go to court, you know, be charged, go to court and be found guilty of posting hurty words on social media, and that's in the public interest. But taking abusers off the streets clearly isn't in the public interest, so they can just carry on to go on and abusing more and more people, because it's clearly there's some kind of issue there. I want to talk to you about the Truth Project, but I'm just going to mention that you know, a lot of this comes down to maybe a cycle of abuse, so intergenerational trauma, learned behavior, unprocessed trauma of their own, mental illness. I mean, now we're being made to accept MAPS, so minor attracted person, which
I will never accept that.
In my eyes, that is what you're trying to justify, having a perversion towards children. It's almost like they're trying to desensitize us to this and normalize it. So yeah, clearly this obviously, in my opinion, goes right to the very, very top of a generalized opinion that none of this is in the public interest, because they just want to sweep it under the carpet and condone it and are actually complicit in it. So that makes me very angry. But I want you to tell me about the Truth Project, because you said 6,000 victims gave evidence. So why do you think that hasn't made any difference?
I think it gave us a bank of evidence that wasn't in a court of law, but it gave us a bank of evidence that we can always go back to and refer to. And we've never had that kind of in-depth analysis of the impact of abuse in all its forms ever. Why has it not made a difference? I think because unless you've got the political will to make a difference, then you can bury it or you can use it. And I am of the belief at the moment that all governments are not seeing this as a serious public health endemic epidemic. It affects at least 1 in 4 people, and that is just the tip of the iceberg.
I I
So,
I was looking at just obviously some statistics,
yeah,
and they do come from the NSPC,
yeah,
and they claim that in the last 5 years, an average of 56 child deaths by assault. I mean, I would hazard a guess it's more than that, but most
yeah.
of them will be under the age of 1 that are more likely to be killed, followed by 16 to 24-year-olds. And you know, their claim is that 1 in 20 children in the UK have been sexually abused, but they're only the statistics of what have actually been, I'm guessing, obviously reported, and what they have on their database. So that number is probably actually far higher.
Well, the Centre of Sexual Abuse Expertise, Claire, they say that 500,000 new cases of child sexual abuse happen every year.
Every year.
And I know from my own research and being on this inquiry for 8 years and all the work that I do, and the statistic that come out of the November 2015 inquiry into intrafamilial abuse, only 1 in 8 children are known to the authorities. So that shows you how prevalent
Yeah.
abuse is in all its forms.
Is this the same one that you served on the panel with? And
So the
you spoke in
2015,
Parliament as well. You also,
pardon,
sorry, you also spoke in Parliament earlier this year
I did, yeah,
about,
but
about the public inquiry recommendations, wasn't it?
yeah. So
And
2015 was the intrafamilial inquiry. So that was just finishing as the inquiry into institutional failings
mm,
started. And ICSA, Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, was looking at all inquiries that were ongoing and taking their findings into their inquiry so that they were completely up to date with everything that's ever been published around child sexual abuse.
yeah,
So, what I spoke about this year in Parliament was the lack of action on the 20 recommendations in the final report that was published in November 22. And I've literally spent every single day on social media
mm,
writing about the lack of movement on the implementation of the ICSA inquiry recommendations.
yeah, because you're also the CEO of a charity, isn't it? Is it the Survivors of Abuse?
Correct, yes. So I started Survivors of Abuse in 2016 and we got charity status.
Mm,
So we've been going 9 years now, and it's a holistic health recovery charity that helps adult survivors aged 18 plus to recover from their trauma in a way that's helpful and not harmful. Because
right.
many victims and survivors will turn to coping mechanisms that will suppress how they're feeling, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But it's usually alcohol, it's food, it's work, it's over exercising,
Drugs.
it's anything and everything that is quite harmful, but at the time makes them feel better about themselves. But long term, it's not helpful.
Well, obviously, it's like a case to almost blot it out. I mean, if you just
Yeah,
take alcohol, for example, um, but in the long run, you end up with far more problems on top,
yeah,
because you're at risk of becoming an alcoholic. It affects your health, and it kind of seems as well that not only are they not doing enough when it actually comes to reports of sexual or child abuse, that they're also there isn't enough help for these people afterwards. And this is, I'm guessing, why you set up your charity.
yeah. I think every charity started from a place where the service that they needed was not there.
Yeah,
So every charity started from that place. And there are a lot of specialist support services available for victims and survivors of sexual abuse, sexual assault and rape. However, there are so many victims now that the services are underfunded, even more so we're in a crisis time at the moment. And there are so many people needing help and support, and yet charities are closing due to the lack of funds.
Yeah. Do you feel that these public institutions, they put their reputations above protecting children?
100%, and that is one of the key findings of the ICSA inquiry. And to be blunt, every inquiry that I've ever read about, they always say in part of the inquiry that they found that reputation came before protection.
I don't understand. I have an opinion, but I don't understand why we now even more so, because you think, years ago, this kind of thing, it just wasn't talked about.
No.
But now it is being talked about.
Yeah.
And people are trying to highlight it, and more and more people are speaking out via social media. But yet it seems even more so now we have a culture of silence and cover-ups, that it actually feels worse than it did years ago, because when victims weren't speaking out and talking about it, you could claim ignorance. And obviously we now have Prince Andrew up on the screen, because kind of where I'm going with this, where you say the public, I think they do cover things up. I think these institutions do put their reputations above the interest of children or anybody who's been a victim. But also complicit. And as I say, talking about culture, when you have the likes of Prince Andrew and Hugh Edwards getting minimal sentences, it's I'm going to put out there that, is it kind of to cover up, not cover up, but more people are speaking out, so it's like they're going more out of their way to desensitize us to it and condone it. What do you think?
I just think that in my world, all we do is talk about child sexual abuse, exploitation, rape, whatever it is. We just talk about it all of the time. So I think some people are getting desensitized to it, and some people think it's not happening to me, it's not happening in my environment, so I don't need to worry about it. The fact is, every single child that I know of is online now. Yeah?
Yeah.
They are open to being groomed and to ultimately be abused if they're not being safeguarded. So it's really important that every parent wakes up and acknowledges that their child could potentially be at risk if they don't step in and know what their children are tapping into in their gaming world, in their friendship world, and all of these apps that are live, Snapchat, all of them. Yeah, it's a real threat. But I don't want to take the online abuse explosion away from where most of the abuse happens, and that is within the family home environment.
Yeah.
And we don't speak about that. We go, oh, look, grooming gangs. Oh, look, online abuse. Oh, look, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, yes, let's look, but don't forget about the family home environment, because that is where most of it takes place.
We do actually have, I think, a video of, I want it to be played, of Susan Hall confronting actually the Mayor of London about grooming gangs, because I think it's quite significant, really.
Well, it's topical, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's significant in where I'm kind of going to go with it, because I kind of feel that when you have leaders like this dismissing it and not answering it, it is sending out a message to people, even like myself as a parent, that we are condoning this. So
update on rape gangs. because the Mayor has refused to answer questions on the rape gangs on numerous occasions. And I'm sure every one of us wanted to hear his update. So, Mr. Mayor, are you not able to give us an oral update on the rape gangs in London?
We've had this conversation. I can't make the Mayor do something that he doesn't want to do.
This isn't right. You were asked by a member for an oral update on rape gangs. You never seem to want to talk about rape gangs. If you were asked for an oral update, why can't you just give an oral update and then the clock starts going after that? Because many people wonder why we don't ask additional questions, and it's because we're on the clock. I will ask a question then. Do you believe, Mr. Mayor, that there are grooming gangs now in London?
So, Chair, in London, the vast majority of what we're dealing with is county lines, which involves organised criminal networks moving illegal drugs.
Mr. Mayor, can I stop you? This is the answer you keep giving me. You know what a grooming gang is now. Even you must have picked up on what a rape gang is. Perhaps if I put it that way, you'll understand more. Does London have rape gangs in it?
See, I would say that when you have, for example, our mayor repeatedly not answering questions to that and not wanting to address it and wanting to sweep it under the carpet when there is clearly an issue, and you have people in the public eye, celebrities getting minimal sentences, to me, that's sending out a message to everyone in this country that we condone it. And then when you have social services NFAing cases with evidence, you have police not taking on, and arresting people for this. The system is failing everywhere. And to me, in every section of the system that goes right up to the very top, the message is loud and clear that they're actually condoning this behavior because there's no real punishment. So we're going to end up with a whole generation, which I think we already have, that think that this is normal. So it is going to continue to happen in the home because we're not setting the example in the first place. So then it relies on people like you fighting every single day, trying to speak out about this.
You can see by my face that I am really frustrated because everything you've said and a lot more has been expressed. Different platforms, different rooms, different audiences, and we just don't have an answer, really. What I do know is the ICSA inquiry came up with a package of measures, a Child Protection Authority, a Minister for Child Abuse. Other recommendations included proper, robust, one system of data capture, which would look at who is perpetrating, who are the victims, and then where the data shows there's a problem. So if there was a grooming gang in London, the data would show that, well, that's where we put our resource. This is what proper data capture should be. Okay. And then we need a public awareness campaign because there's many people from all ethnicities, including white, Asian, black, all ethnicities, who don't really understand what our laws are in this country. Because if they did, they wouldn't be sexually abusing, exploiting, raping children and young people of different ethnicities. So
that is probably the fundamental issue of the parents that obviously live near to the immigrant hotels, is the highlighting the fact that these men have totally different cultures and ideologies when it comes to women. And you think, they're allowed to marry at 9 years old. And obviously that is absolutely shocking to us, but that is their culture. And when they are here, unfortunately, they don't seem to understand, as you said, our laws. But it seems that even people that are born and bred here seem to not understand these laws. We are going to just quickly go to a quick break. We're talking to Chris Tuck, a child abuse survivor. And we're just going to have a quick advert with Mark Oaten and our very own Lembit O'Peak's new show. Hi, welcome back. We're talking to Chris Tuck, who is a survivor of child abuse. Hi.
Hi.
I'm just, my head is kind of spinning because it is absolute sheer frustration, because we're sitting here discussing everything that is wrong. We know why it's wrong, and yet it doesn't change. And the question is, why?
I think things have changed slowly, Claire, but it's so slow you don't see the progress. So when I get frustrated like you about the speed of change that we need to see, it's almost like, well, people go, oh, yeah, but 20 years ago and 10 years ago, and from then we've seen this movement. And I'm like, yeah, but 3 years ago, the inquiry finished. We should have had those recommendations implemented, and we haven't seen one.
I'm going to ask you, because you just said that you think things are kind of improving, but slowly, and we're not seeing it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Oh, we both just went then. We both just disappeared, and we're back. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Personally, I think it's getting worse. But then is that because, as you said, it's social media that I'm now more aware of it? So
100%.
therefore I'm looking for it, because I actually do feel very scared, because I know we are talking about, abuse in the home, but ultimately I kind of feel that fundamentally people are changing, and that this is now starting to be condoned or accepted or turning a blind eye to. And I definitely do feel that, it's rife in the police, it's rife in social services, schools, churches, MPs. I mean, we can list the number of MPs and councillors who have been charged with child sexual assault. So you say you think it's getting better, and please tell me why, because maybe I see it too much, so I think it's worse than it is.
So no, I think you're right, as in we're getting more reports of actual cases coming to the public consciousness. But the fact that we can even have this conversation now, as you said, we couldn't have that. These conversations are happening now in people's homes. They're happening down the pub, because I go down the pub and I have these conversations. I joined a local business referral network, so we discuss it all there. So the conversations are happening more freely. More people want to know more things. I know that there's a lot more education, good or bad, we can debate that on another show probably, going on in schools, for example.
Yeah.
And I also see that people like myself, we're finding our voices, we're knocking on institution doors, and we're saying, you need to listen to us because we know where the failings are, so we can help you put things right. Whether that happens or not, in all cases, it doesn't, but in some cases it is. So there is a lot more movement in a positive way. However, we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg. We've got all of the iceberg underneath the water to deal with. And unless this government or a successive government gets to grip with this, then we will be fighting a war that we probably won't win.
And that's where I feel hopeless, because when you see that the BBC have covered up, their own staff who are involved in this, Jimmy Savile, one of the most famous, and wasn't it Keir Starmer was his lawyer? He played a part in this, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not really clued up on that. But the simple fact is he got away with it for years.
He did.
And that's what makes me feel quite hopeless about it, that the government, they know. The institutions know. And I even would say the royal family, complicit, and they know. And yet nothing nothing is changing. Yes, more people agree, more people are speaking out, more people are campaigning, more people are fighting harder than ever. But if you can't make the people at the top, the ones that are put on the pedestal, the ones that have the power, the ones that control, who are not, they're ignoring it and they are complicit in it, then it's like, how does it ever change?
We cannot give up. That's how it changes. That is the only thing we can do. Look at the post office scandal. Look at the infected blood scandal. Those people did not give up, and they eventually got, well, they haven't. They got the truth out there. They got heard, but they still haven't been paid their compensation, have they? Most of them.
Well, that's what ends up happening as well. You know, sooner or later they make you fight, making yourself ill, putting yourself
100%.
to then acknowledge it. And then you've got the fight of any kind of compensation. And it's the same with everything. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, I've had a lady whose child is severely disabled through a drug, and the government have completely recognised it. But when they went to take it to court, they had their legal aid taken away. And then, as I said, they've accepted and recognised it, but the drug's still being prescribed to pregnant women, and they still can't get compensation. And she couldn't even get a carer for her child. It's you just think the whole world is completely inverted.
Yeah, it does feel like that.
I'm gonna ask the studio just to play the clip. I think it was you were talking about Hugh Edwards. Was it with Channel 4, I believe?
Yeah.
We can just play that clip.
It's a child being violated, terrorised.
Chris Tuck is a survivor of child sexual abuse. She was an advisor to the independent inquiry into childhood abuse.
The fact that we are seeing a well-known figure pleading guilty to these offences just really shows society that a sexual offender is not the man in the raincoat, and it's not stranger danger. It's people that we truly trust, like, who we invite into our homes through the TV or through our computer screen or through our phones.
The fact that someone formerly so trusted, so respected, has admitted looking at indecent images of children, does that give victims potentially confidence to come forward?
What it will do is add more volume to the conversation around child sexual abuse and exploitation, and its impact on the actual victim and survivors. And the impact is huge. It's often for a lifetime.
Tonight at 10,
Hugh Edwards was the BBC's highest paid news.
That's exactly right, what you're saying there. And that's the problem, isn't it? They abuse their position of power, and that doesn't matter whether it's Hugh Edwards, who is a well-respected newsreader, or it's a celebrity that you're in awe of, or it's your parents
100%.
who you trust and love. And when you are a child growing up, you don't know any different, because you couldn't believe for 1 second that your own parents or even a family member could do this to you. That maybe in your head you think, oh, this is love, or is it something that I've done, or I've got it wrong, or I'm crazy, or there's something wrong with me.
And not only that, Claire, you've got to understand that a child's brain is developing, and they don't often have the conscious awareness of even to question what you've just questioned. You can only question that as an adult when you get the intellect to do that questioning, to actually understand that what you went through, even though it was normal for you, it was not normal for someone who was in a loving, caring, nurturing environment.
Yeah. And I think for probably some children, they can almost believe that it's normal because they're different. And then for those who feel in their body, because they don't have the capabilities to process it, can feel that maybe it's wrong. And as you said, you know, they hold on to all of that for years and years and years. And then when they finally have that recognition that, oh my God, this was wrong, and my parents did this to me, or whoever did this to me, you know, whether it is whoever, to a child, to go through all of that and then have that realization. It's like they've got to relive it all over again.
Well, you question yourself. You're like, did I invite that? Was it my fault? Did it only happen to me? So there must be something wrong with me. But often if siblings within a family are all abused, sometimes you don't know that the one above or the one below is being abused. If it's just you, you might think that you're being abused and you're protecting the others. And more often than not, you all find out that you all were all abused and you all were trying to protect each other. So that's in some families, Claire, but in other families, there could just be one child out of 2 or 3 that's being abused, and the other 2 are not being abused. So those 2 that haven't been abused find it really difficult to understand that the one that has been abused, are they lying? Because it didn't happen to me. So there's so many different dynamics and complexities of abuse within the family home.
Yeah. And I am kind of just reeling for it, because I just think this all just comes down to the way our institutions handle it in every capacity, from not being taken seriously to charges never coming about, or if charges do, CPS dropping cases, social services dismissing the claims. As I said, I don't have a lot of trust in social services anyway, because I do believe they take the wrong children from loving homes and leave children actually in abusive homes, up to, Crown prosecution services. I just, as I said, and then right to the very top, our MPs and our government. It's just, they're not doing enough to change it. Can you just tell me a little bit more about what your charity actually does? Because you've linked it. You have also a health and fitness attached to this, don't you? Sorry, you have is it West Wickham Health and Fitness?
Correct. Yeah. So when I had my breakdown, so I was a chartered management accountant doing very well in a career. I'd left my childhood behind. I was now responsible for myself and my future. And I'd blurred and locked out everything that ever happened. And when I had my breakdown at work, I was like, why? Because I'm married, I've got money in the bank, I've got a roof over my head, I've got my baby that I've always wanted. I should be really happy. What has caused all of this? And it's only through hindsight that I realised that it was the childhood trauma because of all of the abuse that I'd gone through. And that led me on a journey to becoming a health and wellness fitness coach and learning about trauma, and then creating an 8-week program that's based on mindset, nutrition, fitness, movement, sleep, all the things that you need for good mental, physical, emotional health and well-being. So that 8-week course is now what we facilitate through survivors of abuse, and it's free to victim and survivors. And this is what I fundraise for. So I do all the fundraising to pay to give this course free of charge to people that have been harmed from abuse, who are lacking in self-esteem, who are stuck in their lives, who are not really trusting anyone and really are broken inside, but are masking so intently that the outside world thinks that they're okay for some people, and others are just so broken they can't go to work, they can't learn because they're just in fight, flight, freeze, block, frame of mind, and they just don't understand what's going on for themselves. And what I want to say clearly to everybody that's gone through any type of abuse, if you're suffering symptoms that are holding you back in your life, and you are turning to coping mechanisms that are harming you and not helping you, you are probably stuck in a trauma cycle, and you are probably going to need an intervention whereby you need to really look at what's going on for you, what's causing your symptoms, and then putting things in place that are going to help you fulfill your potential and not keep harming you. Because if we don't put these health interventions in place, Claire, what happens if you look at the long lasting impacts of abuse? It can lead to cancers, it can lead to comorbidities, and it can even decrease your lifespan by 10 to 20 years if you don't deal with the impact of the abuse that you've been through.
You can also, I mean, I tend to disagree, but you can, they say that you can also go on to be an abuser yourself.
Yeah. Can we dismiss that myth right now, please?
Personally, I would say that actually you will do absolutely everything possible to not do that. You would want to be the absolute complete opposite. And if you ever showed any signs that you were even heading that route, you're giving yourself a slap, you know, unless it's some kind of genetic disorder. But
so what is true, Claire, that I found from the research and the conversation?
Book that you've written that we've just got up on the screen, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my autobiography. Yeah.
So that's your life story.
Yeah. And my brothers and my sister wrote chapters in this book as well. So it's shining a light on boys and girls and the impact on each of us, and how we come to understand each of our impact.
Yeah. So sorry, you were just saying about the truth.
About the myth. What is true from the conversations that I've had is that abusers often have abuse in their background.
Right.
And that is completely different to if you have been abused, you will go on to abuse.
Yeah. So how many people, I just want to ask, how many people has your charity helped so far?
So in person, over 100, and we've done that over 14 8-week courses.
Yeah.
And in online, through public awareness campaigns, through holding events up and down the country, through voicing CSA with Philip Lafferty, thousands.
Yeah, because we are nearly running out of time.
Okay.
I know it goes quick, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
You could just keep talking. My biggest concern is, and I have mentioned this before, is that I am very, very scared that due to everything that we have talked about, we are going to have a whole generation of teenagers and young adults, and I'm seeing it currently because I have 2 teenagers, where you have a generation of boys that are quite narcissistic, kind of emotionally abusive with girls, the whole emotional blackmail. They're not afraid to cry, to exert some power and control over them. But we have a whole generation of girls who think that this is normal. They think to have boys be all hard and bad boy on them and controlling and questioning them and dictating to them is acceptable behavior, and they're allowing it. And I don't know where this lack of self-worth is coming from in young girls. And I also don't understand why we have a whole generation of young adults, male young adults, behaving like this. And as I said, I've got 2 teenage daughters, and I am kind of seeing this across the board. I've even spoken to the local school about it. I mean, they claim that they have all of these talks in PSHE, but I'm thinking there's still something going wrong here somewhere. There's a breakdown in the system, because I'm actually quite scared, because the way I'm seeing girls thinking all of this is acceptable and boys behaving in a way, I'm thinking, oh my God, what are they going to be like when they are actually adults? And, are they going to go on to be, domestic abusers, and then obviously go on to have children? It scares me. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
The research is showing that child-on-child abuse is the most prolific type of abuse that is happening at the moment.
Really?
It's especially in the family home, for example, sibling abuse is outweighing grandfather, father, mother, mother abuse. So, you know, parental type abuse, it's being outweighed by sibling abuse. So there is something definitely going on, and I don't have all of the answers.
See, I know in that respects, I find that very worrying. And I think, you know, as we said, people are speaking out more and more. You are working like so hard. I mean, you're giving your life to it, basically.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, completely and utterly, to obviously try and help victims,
Yeah.
but also try and gain awareness, to obviously hold, you know, Parliament and our MPs and our government accountable, you know, all of the services.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to finish off. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the same thing and say, unfortunately, I believe that our mainstream media, our programs, our celebrities that we put on pedestals, our newsreaders, our MPs, our governments, our entire institution are turning a blind eye. They're condoning it and they're complicit in it. And I think that is fundamentally where it's going wrong, because I think if they were to actually stand up and make changes, then things possibly would change.
We need that cultural shift where we put children and young people first when it comes to protecting them from these harms. And that means making sure that we implement the recommendations from ICSA plus more. That's just the foundation.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Just before you go, so basically your charity is the Survivors of Abuse charity.
Yeah.
And your website again is
survivorsofabuse.org.uk.
Right. So if anyone who watches this is watching, you can get in touch with you, and you'll be there ready to help. Sorry, go on, carry on quickly.
No, I'm just saying, hopefully we will be there, but we would love some funding from someone who would love to get involved with our cause.
That's the thing, isn't it? You know, if people aren't prepared to actually physically step up, then, you know, there are so many ways in which people can help.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the problem with the world. People have got a lot to say about a lot of things that they're not happy with, but not many people are prepared to put their head up above the parapet and step up and actually do something. And you are definitely one of those people that is prepared to do that. And so, yeah, I mean, I would make that appeal that anybody who wants to donate to your charity is more than welcome, because you are doing this for free and you're doing it for the love of obviously wanting to change things. And I'm sorry, that's all we've got time for, Christine.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for telling us your story and everything that you're doing. So to everyone else, thank you for joining me today, and a special thank you to Chris Tuck, not just for sharing her story, but for her courage and strength and unwavering fight for justice, you know, day in, day out. I know she's not going to give up. What we've heard from her today is more than personal, it's political, it's systemic, and it is urgent. I honestly feel it's really urgent. The truth is, survivors should not have to become activists just to be believed, and they shouldn't have to fight over and over a system that is supposed to protect them, but still they rise up. If you're watching and this conversation has stirred something in you, please don't turn away. Don't let this be just another story. Let it be a spark. Support survivors, support Chris's charity, educate yourself, challenge broken systems, corrupt, complicit systems, speak up when it's uncomfortable, demand accountability where there has been silence for too long, because children are still being hurt every single day and justice is still being denied. We can't change the past, but we can fight for a future where no child has to survive what far too many already have. So until next time, you're here watching me, Claire Dyer, on Dyer Consequences. Please stay informed, stay compassionate, and above all, stand up, speak up, and protect every single child. Thank you for watching. This is Unprecedented TV.